Shift happens.
Shift happens.
Happens. Shift happens.
Tam tararam tam tam tam.
Whee! And that's how we roll. Hello, everybody. Hello, Maria. Hello, Pavlína.
Hi.
Hi there.
Welcome back to Shift Happens. The shift is still happening. We haven't recorded anything for ages, but now we're striking back, bringing our friends to our podcast about change
that's a
and
first
finding
special-
friendships and everything.
Yeah, I'm
That's
super
the first
excited.
special one with guests.
I think
And the
Thank you
special
for
is very
joining
special.
us.
we've been talking about this for ages. I think I was
Yeah, I think since from we even started doing this,
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
were one of the first person that pop up in our mind.
think it-
But
to
we're
be a
like this
guest.
joke when people in their 30s are trying to gather themselves together. So 4 months later we're here.
I think if the idea was a kid, it would be like 4th birthday now or something like this.
Okay, Pavlína as our guest is here because she's this walking book of facts, and she is super fun, and she's this person who is forecasting trends, which is actually called a trend forecaster. Pavlína, my first question is, what does a trend forecaster do?
So you are trying to look into the future, but you start by looking around you and you start by looking at the past. So it's actually, in order to predict the future, you have to be in the present and in the past. I know I sound like yoga teacher just right now, but that's the truth of it. And yeah, I help companies like IKEA or even small tech startups to look in the future. My current project I'm working on, for example, is how the year 2050 will look like. And I recently got published in Wired, talking about the future of work, how it will look in 2050. And it's quite exciting. But I think mostly, we talk about trends, but when we talk about trends, we talk about culture. So in some worlds, like your advertising world, my role is usually called cultural strategist or somebody who has cultural insight, because what we're looking at, what is cool and what's happening and vibing now, and therefore what will be happening in the future.
Is it like in One Republic song, "The future looks good," or like the future looks? What exactly?
This is my favorite part of my job, because everybody loves it, because they always can put their hopes for the future. This, I think,
Exactly.
while we are living, we are like, oh, the next year will be better, or when I get my sleep it will be better, or the whole thing, once I get married it will be better. And so we are so hopeful about the future, and I think, like, even though the facts are often contradictory, we need that in order to sustain.
But are we really optimistic? Like when I don't know, read newspapers right now, or what's happening, how geopolitics changed during last 2-3 years. I don't know, like I see less and less optimism, I would say. Maybe not as a consumer, but more like as a part of the society, as a member of society, I feel less optimistic, and I see that around me.
That's true. It's actually very interesting that in the trend reports for this year, for the first time, we are seeing nihilism as a consumer sentiment. That means like you have already given up. It's the goblin mode. It's kind of this quiet quitting. It's those are the whole kind of like the sense of dread, the sense of like there's no energy left in me anymore. I don't feel like trying anymore. The glass ceiling or the economic situation or everything is kind of like people are giving up. But I think that's like we need to distinguish between the two. It's like this kind of like feeling of just right now and kind of this hope that the future will actually get better. And those are two different things. But definitely what you're describing is so prevalent, and we see it across generations. It doesn't matter if you look at the young people, if you look at the older people, it's just like everybody has this sense of dread.
Yeah, and I think like it's happening on many different levels. So obviously we have wars that are affecting our our friends. It's maybe not our countries, but our friends somewhere over there. So we have a lot of friends from different countries. As we met each other, that we didn't say that, but we met each other as mentors for Google startup programs. So we actually meet with a lot of different people from different countries. So this is like the just relationship between countries level. Then we have the economic level, when I don't know, like there are some data from USA that people our age or a bit younger than us, actually first time in long recorded history, have worse perspective than their parents, and usually it should be other day around. For me that was shocking, like this is what happening. And then have this personal level, and this is actually the main topic, that was main topic for our podcast for the first season. Are we still first season, Ira, or did this a second season?
Maria,
I'm not
we are
sure, like,
decent
what-
podcasters. We should know this.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not. You are the professional one. I'm the amateur here. So anyway, we were talking about friendship, and also Pavlina, you created this wonderful piece because you are doing newsletter, which I highly recommend, and you focus on those relationship between people, and we have epidemic of loneliness. So I don't know. Maybe this is also me. I did yesterday a personality test. I'm waiting results, but I've noticed that for many questions I answered, "Are you a warrior?" I am worrying a bit, yes.
Okay.
So I put some negative, answers over there. Hmm. I can't see how we moved from that. So what are the trends saying? Like, what will be the game changer? What will, be helping us to move from here to then? Or maybe, because I touch multiple levels. Like, maybe can we go from level to level? Like, what's happening over there? What can we expect?
So what we see from economic perspective, and I'm using a lot of American and Western European data, and it's important to say because so often countries or continents, even like Africa or Asia, are ignored in trend reports. So often, what I'm going to be talking about is our European American context of things. But yeah, exactly what we were saying. We see that already the millennials, they were worse off, and Gen Z are even worse off than the generation of our parents. If you look at how many salaries our parents needed to get their apartment versus how many salaries we need to have to get an apartment, you see this, like, it's worse for us and the whole thing. And I think this kind of changing of the economy also when it comes to workplace. For example, this rising gig economy, that you can't get a stable job. For baby boomers, the average time they spent in one job was 11 years. For our generation, it's 3 years. For Gen Zs, it will be even less because just you don't get the contracts. You don't get to work for companies that exist in 3 years. You just don't have the stability. So it's kind of like, and the economy is constantly changing. You don't have any stability when it comes to that, and of course you don't feel like things are going in the right direction. And then we put over on the top of that how we actually are losing relationships and friendships and so on. Exactly what your podcast is about. And it's not about like us being stuck on the screens whole day, and 2/3 of young people are meeting their partners on dating sites, and you know how fucked up are the dating sites, and we could talk about this later. And it's not only the screens, but for example, the cities have completely lost the third spaces, the spaces where you actually by accident can meet an acquaintance, like a park or something like that is very cool, and that's not privatized, and that's not paid for, and it's not membership only, and so on. But we have completely lost it, and we are grinding all the time. We are working more hours than ever, especially after pandemic. And then you are just like lacking the whole thing. 75% of people in London don't know the names of the neighbors. We are just stuck in those cities. We are constantly moving places. Look at us, Irina, you have moved places all over there. And then it's very difficult to like build the roots, feel connected somewhere, feel connected to your community, to your society, and you feel more and more of those things are connected to money. Like you have to pay for a membership, you have to pay for a premium subscription on the dating site, you have to, it's kind of like where you have to go, and there's a lot of pressure coming put onto you from the society, and even for yourself, because we are in the midst of this productivity culture. I completely hate it, honestly. Like, kind of, you feel like you should be optimizing your whole 24 hours. It's like our conversation at the beginning, I can't sleep 1 hour more because then I'm losing the time. I have to optimize my rest. I have to optimize my holidays. I have to optimize my relationships. You see it all over TikTok now, how people are sitting down with their partners and writing down their goals, and how they should kind of go for it. I think this is so sick and in a way unsustainable. And I'm not surprised that we are kind of giving up, because it's either this whole hustle grind, or it's kind of like, let's find something else. And then we have the rise of shred vibes. Then we have the rise of cottagecore, kind of those like, let's go back to the basics. We see a huge rise of dumb phones, for example. We see people suddenly, those running clubs or whatever, kind of like going to the basics and meeting people in real life. And Gen Z is very obsessed with having dating suddenly in real life, and kind of like creating those connections in real life. And I think that's a natural contradiction. And that brings me to the theory of trend forecasting. You always look for something like that is contradictory, that is coming. So we are always contra reacting. Does make sense?
Yeah, it does. But my question here is, do you think there are too many contradictions nowadays? There's too much irrationality? Because I would think trend forecasting is looking for some patterns. Patterns need to be rationalized in a way. And, then all of a sudden people start moving. All of a sudden wars begin, and no one could have predicted that. And, that shakes a lot of things, that stirs the pot. Then you begin to feel some cultural implications. So the world is shifting and is moving and at such an unbelievable speed that sometimes, I don't know, maybe I'm the only one, but I do have this feeling that I can't make sense of this anymore. So
Yeah.
how do we even project this to, I don't know, 10, 20, 50 years further on, making that into a big forecast of a trend?
So you have touched upon so many of my favorite things. So I will try to go through them. But what you're talking about with the war and everything, it's called polycrisis, and it's like the feeling of so many things happening at once, and it's not kind of like either or crisis, but it's like poof,
Hmm.
like so many crises at the begin happening, and it's, yes, there are more crises happening, but also we are more aware of them. So we are more sensitive to them. It's like you start your day by opening your BBC or, I don't know, FT News briefing, and then you are like, oh, Sudan suddenly falling down. I think 50 years ago, my father didn't know where is Sudan. Not the fact that they just lost the government, or I don't know, something like that. So there's this like kind of dread coming from all the information around you. But exactly what you are saying also, the speed of the world is much faster, the speed of information is much faster. During the last 50 years we had the same technological acceleration as the 200 years before. So the idea that the world is changing so fast is not an idea, it's a fact, it's a proven fact. And our brains are not wired for it. Like, we are moving faster than our brains can actually process. And so for us, it's really, really difficult to grasp. And, for a long time, we had this like one monoculture to refer to. You could actually, meet people and talk to them and kind of get the same talking points. But we have lost it in the last few years because of all those screens that we are having. When I was growing up in the 90s, my household had one screen, and we would watch TV, and the next day we would go and talk to our friends about that movie we saw. But currently, an average household has 11 screens, and each of them has a very different feed. So we are actually not sharing anything anymore. And that's why, for example, if you look at the box office, the most popular movies of last few years are the movies that are actually talking about the previous culture. So you have Top Gun, you have Barbie, you have all the like nostalgia, because this is the only thing we kind of remember. all the big movie stars are oh, Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, it's not anyone from Gen Z actually. And if you look at like
Hmm.
who's the most popular streaming artist just right now, it's Bad Bunny, and half of the people have never heard of it. And it's because of all those feeds. So we are consuming like we are basically shut down in our own small bubble on our own screen. And that bubble is evolving so fast that it's very difficult to grasp it. So whenever you meet somebody, it's actually so hard to find a talking point. But coming back
Yeah,
to,
but
yeah,
on the other hand, for me, that's actually interesting part because actually I hated when everyone was listening to the same band. They were watching the same movie or the same series. Obviously, it's nice to vibe around something you like with someone else, and that's true. But in the same time, like somehow it was boring for me. So I kind of find it interesting that you meet someone and they say, oh, I'm super interesting, I don't know, in growing plants, and now I'm super interested in learning Turkish, and I'm interested in whatever else it's, like a vibing for you. That's actually interesting. And on the other hand, it's, I don't know, more natural. Like for me, it's kind of unnatural that how many billion people we have right now? Seven,
eight.
eight. I lost eight. Yes, so we are already eight. Okay, so 8 billion people talking the same stuff. Like that's boring. So for me, that's actually an interesting part of
I
this
I
change that we have those.
I understand what you're saying. People always ask me, so what's in fashion? What should I wear? What kind of jeans I should wear just right now? And I always tell them all jeans
What's
are
that
in
fits?
fashion. It's like whatever. Find your Discord server and it will tell you like skinny jeans are fine, baggy jeans are fine. That's the kind of thing. Truth is everything is okay. On the other hand, I know what you are saying, and I tend to be super happy about it, but then I tend to be also very worried about it. um, we were all growing up in those Eastern European countries, and like come looking back at our high school, like it was so different than the American high schools in the movies. Like, in our high school, like everybody kind of looked the same, felt the same, talked about this, and it was kind of boring. And then you looked at the high school movies from US, and they had the nerds and the jocks and beauty queens, and it was kind of like very pronounced subculture, and you had to kind of choose which subculture you go for. And it was kind of like in an extreme. If you were a beauty queen, you were a beauty queen full time. And back in our schools, you could kind of switch between the identities. And I think what's happening now is
Yeah,
kind
and
of
we were actually judging those series. So we were watching them. They were like guilty pleasure, but in the same time, we were judging them and say they are crazy. Like, really, can you be labeled as nerd for the full year of
exactly.
high school? That was crazy for me. So I was obviously loving watching those series, but as a guilty pleasure, I didn't want my life to be
Yeah,
like
and
that
and
in a
and
way.
it is
Like,
kind of what's happening now, because like there's a trend, and you have mob wives, and suddenly you have to be like kind of a walking Pinterest board of a mob wife. And the next one, is a strawberry girl or tomato girl was last year. And you are
Yes.
suddenly wearing those red dresses and red nails, and the next one, and the next one, and then I don't know. I feel it's kind of like stressful.
But
I
getting back to that.
imagine that
Oh yeah,
everyone
go ahead.
as I imagine that everyone needs some kind of feeling of belonging. That's it. Like, and if you have too many small groups and they're switching all over and the trends are changing so fast, or even you cannot say they are trends anymore. They don't last to be, I don't know, called trends also or whatever. Then you lose the feeling of belonging, like identity. So I imagine it's connected to that because like when I don't know during my high school, I was saying, I don't know, I'm listening to Nirvana. I was part of some club, let's say, yes. So
Cool.
everyone who also liked Nirvana, they were also in that same club. So
I was listening
I
to
think that's
Backstreet Boys.
connected to that. Yeah,
No one is surprised on this call.
we were in different club. We were in
Yes,
different
I
club
wouldn't
then.
join your
Yes, I
club,
was
Maria.
listening to Pearl Jam. Yeah, but anyway, we are friends now. So something good came out of it. But Yeah, but I wonder. So my question would be, and maybe it's I'm not sure that trends can answer that, but that's a question for us human beings. Like, how can we find a sense of belonging?
I loved your question about the identity, and actually, I will maybe
Mm,
first address that because what
mm,
we see, for example, with Gen Z, that they have multiple identities because they are the generation that grew up on the internet. And of course, like you do have a different identity when you are playing Fortnite, you do have different identity on your secret Instagram, you do have a different identity, I don't know, in a virtual dark room or something like this. So it's kind of like, and those people are used to switching between those identities. So I think it's like that's why it's so difficult nowadays to talk about authenticity because I think like if you are used to switching those identities and it's not like your work identity and your private identity but there are so many between. I read that on average a Gen Z person has 6 to 7 Instagram accounts and each of them run under a different identity. So it's kind of like you are constantly switching those egos and I think you're struggling with who you are anymore, like as a person, especially if you are bombarded by all those aesthetics and trends that you should hop on, and then it's kind of like you are struggling to find that sense of belonging, and in a world where there's no stability, and where how we talked about it earlier, then it's so difficult and you crave it even more.
Does it make it, yeah, like more complicated to us Gen Ys? Because when people say that Gen Zs are the loneliest and they have like the most multiple identities there have ever been, I do think that it's applicable to us as well. And maybe it's harder on us because a part of our lives was spent in that period when things were more or less stable. I'm trying to apply that to myself, and maybe it hits me harder now, to have multiple identities or to explain what am I in a different country, on a different market. Am I a podcaster? Am I a worker? Am I I don't know, an artist? Am I a Russian girl? I don't know. So all of those identities with different accents, they come together, and I sort of need to pick and choose in which circumstances, I present myself as what exactly, and it never was a problem before. It used to be just the way it was. So I think this breakdown in terms of we had one identity and now we have multiple is something even harder because Gen Z's obviously didn't have time to build an identity that would be the core. They just started living multiple lives, and that's okay with them, which is not really fine with us. Maybe that's my feeling.
There is an amazing article. I'm going to send it to you, and I guess it will be linked in the episode notes. But I just found a piece of it, and I'm going to quote it. We never knew having a first kiss without having watched Pornhub first. We never knew flirting and romance before it became sending DMs or reacting to Snapchat stories with flame emojis. We never knew friendship before it became keeping up Snapstreak or using each other like props to look popular on Instagram. I think that's such an interesting take. Like how different it is from how we grew up and how we kind of like having first friendships, first relationships to what they have. And suddenly, like, an average time a kid watches porn for the first time is 10 years old. That's
Oof.
so early and it's becoming even earlier and earlier. And then suddenly you are getting those very different viewpoints on when what it comes to becoming identity because suddenly you are trying to craft your identity to be liked, to be perceived also in the online world, and that might be even more important.
But I think that's also about the ethical thing, because the three of us here are professionals helping other companies to, I don't know, build audiences, to sell more, to, like, and we use technology for that. And everything you said is connected to technology. Like those changes are somehow impacted by the technology, yes, and how much we allow the technology to go into personal lives of us and kids, because like what this is what's happening. We started having, I don't know, internet every day when we were around, I don't know, teenagers, yes, something like that. So at home, I think I still remember this funny sound when I needed to turn on
Yes.
the router stuff. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So and I imagine Gen Z, they wouldn't even recognize the sound, yes, when they hear it, because internet was always there, and we, I think, don't have the proper system, and that's something that our governments, that European Union should do, actually, to set some laws that would help us. I think it's happening right now. There is a lot of discussion. I think it's happening in USA, but the harm was already done in a way.
Mm.
And yeah, and I think we are a bit too slow if what with what Pavlina said, that the changes are happening so fast that our brain cannot, you know, consume it in a way, understand it, adjust it. And either our countries cannot, either our, our governments, and we need something to actually secure people who can, I don't know, people, kids, yes, like I imagine before being 15, you cannot decide what's good for you in terms of technology. That's my opinion, at least.
I think it's like we often talk about social media and mobile phones that they are to blame for like mental health crisis with Gen Z. I don't think it's
Mm.
only that, honestly. I think it's kind of how the whole society has evolved, how we have evolved. Like, often I get asked by the parents, like, what should I do if my kid is using too much phone? And then you look at the parents and they're using so much phone. And, we are glued to our screens. Or, like, what we see is how much they were influenced by the pandemic. Imagine that you are like 6 years old, 13 years old, and you spend 3 years basically like living online and seeing everybody on. That's such a crisis, I think, happening.
Yeah, and obviously there is huge part of, like the families and parents, but I don't want, I think, push the whole responsibility towards them, because I think they, like, parents were also not immune to
Yes.
it. Like when we entered the internet, it's a bit like with alcohol right now. So I hope I won't get, I don't know, hated for what I'm saying right now, but there's a lot of discussion about alcohol, and we used to believe that even small glass of wine is healthy. And now, like, I think majority of scientists are saying sorry, but no, it's your choice. You can still pick to have some alcohol. Like, we are adults, we can decide about this. We do a lot of unhealthy things, so we can decide about not about having or not alcohol. But the truth is, it's not healthy. But 10 years before, that wasn't common knowledge. That wasn't common knowledge. And I think the same with internet. When it happened, it wasn't common knowledge how it's gonna impact our mental health. So today's parents, let's say, have they are 30, 40 years old, or like they became somehow also addicted to it, and then they have kids, and it's super hard to not pass on that addiction, I would say. So to give a good benchmark, to give a good behavior pattern, you need to be healthy.
Yes.
And we I think that's the common thing. We first, whenever there is some kind of novelty, and I'm so much into novelties, I love trying new stuff, and I'm, like, always on board with new stuff, but only after you learn what's the effect towards your body, your mental health, your relationship. I was one of the first, you mentioned the dating app. I remember when Tinder came up. This is how I met my husband. Yes, this is how I met my husband. Where I was trying it whenever it came up, and my friend told me, there is this new app. I was already logged in, after just few words, just to try what's happening there, and I was just happy or lucky enough to yeah, to find my husband on the actually first date I went into. So that was my first date from Tinder. Now we 10 years later. But yeah, but no, like, that could end, and for many my friends it didn't end up well, and now that's the only option to meet someone new, for all the reasons Pavlina
And
mentioned.
that brings my favorite
And oh,
example of Russian dating scene now, right? When all of the
yeah.
apps left the market and there are just a few left. And so there's no longer a Tinder, there's no more Bumble, there's no more anything. So there's just literally one app that is left that sort of combines every sort of weirdness in terms of why people even register for the dating app.
But
But
that's an amazing proof. That's an amazing proof that systematic changes are needed. So like I think we shouldn't rely on people, being more mindful and saying, "Oh, I won't be using dating app. I will find someone on my own." When all the people are looking for are on dating apps. You are going where the target audience, let's call it,
yeah,
is. So if in one country, obviously for super strange and hard reason, the dating app market is stopped, they are finding new way, but that's a systematic change, yes,
to
systemic
me it's
change,
more
like
about
that's
like the
something.
cultural insight that I see from my friends, for example, that are there and that are still single. The habit of meeting new people in physical reality, like going out to a bar and, I don't know, meeting a guy at the, like, at the bar. It's lost. People don't come up and talk to each other. It's considered weird. People don't come up and talk to each other on the tube. People are not asking for telephone numbers any longer. It's all digitalized. So the habit is lost. So right now we have the entire country that needs to resurrect that habit of physical interactions, which seems weird. So that to me is like the major
But is it
revelation.
happening? But is it happening? Like, are people are trying? Like, I don't know. Like,
Uh,
are they building new dating apps instead? Like,
as
what's
with
the?
many, many cases nowadays where our habits are forced to change, yes, it's happening. But when the change and when this change is forced, you need to go out. You need to take yourself out there to meet someone, because otherwise it feels very lonely. It feels stressful. It feels like everything, because you are
Ta-da!
working, then you're going home, and then, I mean, you were doing this digital dating, which felt fine. All of a sudden, you don't do that anymore. So you have to plan your, I don't know, being out there. Yeah. And I mean, that's the stress of the physical world out there. And it hits the Gen Y quite hard, because for a long time, for many years, online dating has been the thing with meeting new people, right?
But wasn't the online dating also stressful in a way? Like
My
this,
love, to me, it's
like
stressful even nowadays, honestly. Like, it's just a disaster.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
I think dating
Yeah,
has
still
been
going
Like
always
strong.
this feeling.
stressful, honestly.
Exactly.
Yeah,
We've all been
yeah,
there.
that's true. That's true.
Like,
That's true. But I think this thing like everything is short term, not stable, as Pavlina mentioned. Yeah, I don't know, like I kind of I'm super into technology. I like trying new stuff, but I find it, maybe I'm getting older, ladies, like maybe that's it, my this is me getting older. But I kind of understand. Thank you, Ira. So for
Just like the
people who are
gesture
not,
work.
for people who are not watching us, I did some gesture thing to, I don't know, to send a message through, and Ira is making fun out of me. Thank you, Ira. Yeah, but I'm just feeling that maybe this is the optimistic thing. Maybe this is the optimism Pavlina was saying, that we are fighting against those changes, and we are going back to the roots, because for me going back to the roots is finding human connections. And I'm not saying technology cannot help that. I would actually imagine, I would want technology to be designed a bit differently, to be designed having the human connection in mind. We talked about this app, breakfast app,
Yep.
that was actually like um connecting people and sending them to have a breakfast. That's one of the nicest place you can actually build a connection with someone. So I think that's the fight. That's the optimism. If I was to look for optimistic thing, that would be it for me. Because if not,
Yeah, that was
I would be
screwed.
super sad.
I think there is a lot of optimism for me in AI and in the like voice operated AI, because so far like a lot of technology like has been excluding many people, and this kind of, once you have somebody to talk to, like even if it's like in the movie Hair, it's more inclusive,
Hmm.
and we maybe realize that it's affecting more people. And in one example about the screen time and kind of addiction to phones and so on, I'm just writing a report about people 65 plus, and they're actually an age
Oh.
group that is most prone to be addicted to their phones and most likely to wake
Really?
up with their phones. And we don't realize that we see them as grandmas. But like, imagine you are a whole day alone because like that's the reality for a lot of old people. You don't have anybody to talk to, and suddenly, like you can go to YouTube, you can go to chat rooms, you can go for that, and that's a fascinating one. Like, and we are never talking about the online addictions of old people. Well, we should. Honestly, we should
Mm-hmm.
start having
Mm.
those conversations. We are all about the kids, but we are forgetting those. Or the fact that like most things are optimized for our generation and our level of technological knowledge. But for example, like, did you know that Apple Watch is actually not optimized for all the people? So if you give it to your grandma, so it would like find her heart attack in time, it will not detect it because the studies were not done on those people.
Oh my
So
god.
so it's kind of
Mm.
like, like there is like we always talk about technology and from our own perspective because the
Yes,
journalists, the
that's true.
influencers, all of us are kind of in the same bubble. That's why I'm saying all the trend reports are actually talking about a certain bubble. They are not looking at the world, and we are not looking at the world. So I'm kind of like excited what's coming, like when it comes to AI being more accessible and like actually not having like somebody who has Alzheimer's can't use Apple Watch, or somebody who's
All
older
right.
can't use Apple Watch.
Hmm.
So how that will change, and we already see it with some of the kids like being like heavily affected by that. And this is the moment where I'm excited and worried at the same time. And I think if we think that the mental health crisis caused by the phones and the social media is big, you can't imagine how big it will be once you see the kids talking to the AI as if it was real adults and don't distinguish the difference between the adults and the AI. And it's already happening with Alexas and everything.
I think that's a big question to adults then. Like, what do we need to do to actually act as
No,
adults so that we are distinguishable from AI?
it's my favorite example. Like my friends, they have kids, and their kids rather talk to Alexa and rather ask Alexa how big is an elephant because their daddy is always busy and Alexa has better answers.
Oh.
So how do you actually compete with that? And when I did a research for International Press Institute, and we were talking about Gen Z and how they use social media, we realized that those people didn't distinguish between people they knew from Discord only and people who knew they in their real time. They talked about them as if they were the same people, and we never realized how much that's blending. I think we're the last generation that's able to distinguish online and offline, honestly.
Mm.
Oh wow.
That's super. I remember I once watched some documentary about differences between First World War and Second World War, and the difference was movies. And for the Second World War, people were much more likely to kill someone, like the soldiers. It was much easier for them. So during First World War, a lot of people didn't actually kill anyone, like with the guns. Like there was more like the, I don't know even what's the word in English. In Polish, to be armaty. Uh, Ira, you always no, you don't have this. Sometimes we have this connection with Ira. I say something in Polish and she immediately knows it.
Language
So,
vibes.
but that doesn't work anymore. So I don't know big guns, like operated or to kill multiple people, but not like direct combat. And in Second World War, people were much more likely to do the direct combat because they saw it
Mm.
on a movie, so they mind learned how to operate. Like imagine you get your hand, I don't know, have you ever tried gun, have you ever shoot on, so
Yeah.
like, but okay, you did, but for many people who even didn't, they watch it on movie, so they know like how to pick the gun, how to hold it. They know that they need to those use the safety thing first. And because you saw it, so your brain doesn't distinguish between false and true. It's just the stories we have in our mind. So once you implement a story, you know that story. That's why, I don't know, reading a book, so good for our minds and for bringing creativity and blah blah blah. And then what Pavlina is saying, we are even a step further on that. So we put more stories into our brain, and the brain just like consumes everything that we are sending towards it.
Different brain
So,
behaviors, right?
yeah.
Because for example, like telling a difference between different stories that are currently being told to you on the media, you need some extra brain power and media literacy apparently to distinguish whether they are true or false, or whether you believe them or you choose not to believe them, and so on and so forth. Then there are these like popular culture imagery that is being shown to us, right? We're watching the movies, we're listening to the music, and then it becomes the new normal, right? So what is normal nowadays would probably be my question. And Pavlina, do you see any like big trends in terms of how people actually, like across different generations, make friends and foster connections in all of this madness of us being very detached, being in different bubbles, being consumers of different cultural things, and sort of, moving at such a great pace?
That's I love that question, because my favorite question always is not what will change, but what will not change in the future. And if we look at the year 2030, 2050, what will be the same is that we will want to be loved. We will not want to be lonely. We will want to have our own community. And I think that's kind of such a strong thing. And, that will never be erased by the fact that you're older or younger. That will never be erased by the fact that you have AR or not, that you live in Africa or Asia or not. And I think that's the biggest, I wouldn't call it a trend. It's just like an axiom of a conversation. And people will be always looking for different ways how to achieve it. And it might be the virtual boyfriends, and it might be the dating apps, it might be the dating documents, it might be whatever there is. But my favorite one is a TikToker who allows you to get a boyfriend experience, which is like a subscription package that you get a I love you message every morning, and you can even get a voicemail how beautiful you look and so on. It's like, I think, $10 a month. Amazing deal. Like, let's get it. But like, the core of it is the same. So we will be always having the same narrative woven into our trends, no matter how crazy they are or not.
Black Mirror.
But I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced that the message, sent to million of followers, the same one, "You look beautiful today, honey," would do the job in a way. So I kind of believe. I do agree completely with what you said, Pavlina. I kind of believe that we will be looking how to be advanced, technologically advanced, how to reach where we didn't reach. We are looking for some trip to Mars happening soon. Um, but in this madness, in this, advanced technological world, the human connection, the true human connection, not the fake one. I think that will be the hardest, but the most interesting part. And if we can actually scale it in a way, that will be a successful thing. I'm not sure how to do it.
Actually, Pavlina, I have a question. Knowledge is a burden, right? And this is like
Okay,
Drum
now you are taking
forecast.
the yoga instructor torch on this.
Knowledge is a burden. And I don't know, in your case, obviously you look into like the past, the future, the everything, connecting all the dots. So if I have a question about the future, I would either go to a psychic, to my friend who is doing tarot readings, or to you, Pavlina.
I'm
Decided.
the worst decision on those three,
So knowing so many facts and having connected so many dots and looking at this vast data lakes and everything, how do you yourself approach the question of sustaining your friendships, meeting new people, and like sort of deciding who stays, who goes, who you stick with? And I mean, that concerns us in a way as well, because we've been friends for how many years, right? Like this happened somehow. So what's your approach now
Did,
that you know
did
stuff?
you? did you invite me to a podcast to ask me if I want to still be friends with you?
Actually, before the podcast, Pavlina, we agreed that we're going on a holiday all together. So yes, we are, obviously.
Hopefully, that was the assumption.
Yeah, kind of like,
Yeah,
That
it's like
was
the
the
hypothesis
question.
is there.
it's like,
Yeah. We are not asking. You are our friend. You need to stick with us. That's not a question.
no, I
That's
love
the
it.
hard truth.
But oh, my puppy has just come, so that's not fine.
Oh, hello.
And yeah,
He's bigger and
yeah,
bigger.
he is bigger and bigger, and he loves to cuddle more and more. I think like for me, it's I have always had this endless curiosity and endless curiosity, especially about people. And like I meet so many people. Like uh, last month, biggest marketing magazine in the Czech Republic published a list of people who have the highest amount of LinkedIn connections on Czech LinkedIn. And no surprise, your girl is ranking. Like, I have over, like, currently, I think I have over 19,000 connections, and I have met most of those people. And I have probably, like, and it's a 0.1% of people on LinkedIn have that many connections. So for me, it's like kind of like I think I sometimes seem like a very shit friend because I meet so many people and so on. Because like and at the same time, I'm introverted. I know nobody believes me, especially after I said it. Like, but I'm heavily introverted, so I need my me time. I need to go for a very long and quiet walk with the puppy, and so that I can go on and feed my curiosity. So I think like sometimes I'm very bad at keeping it up because I'm trying to keep it up with so many people and so in so different contexts that in like different countries, different time zones, different like industries, different environments, different levels of like friendship. So I think it's worse and worse. Like I don't want to have a CRM because I think it's shitty. But like I think I would. But like I think it's shitty. But so I wouldn't. But like kind of you get my point. So I think like I'm always like
Ira, I think we should feel privileged. I think we
I
should
already feel so privileged. I'm like, wow.
no, I feel
Yes,
like
this is what Pavlina is saying. Girls, I found a time for
no,
you.
I
On
hate to
Wednesday.
say it like that. I know I feel like
Too late. It's already
that's,
happened.
what I want to say is like most of the time I feel like I'm a really bad friend. Like I think that's why I'm thinking so much about like loneliness, friendships, connections, and why it's like the core of all my report and all my work because I do feel like a shitty friend because of all what I said.
Go on holiday with us and feel less shitty. That's my resolution here. We'll spend some quality time.
Yeah.
Maria, your final question.
Oh, you shoot me. Why? Yes, I'm ready. I'm ready. You actually
This how it looks like when Maria is lying, you know. Remember that
And
face?
Maria's like, da-da-da-da-da-da.
Da-da-da-da. No, actually, you stole my question about the about this how you actually knowing all the facts, how you navigate towards that. So knowledge is the same thing. But I think at the end, so if I'm to ask the last question, we met actually on a workaround, I would say, because Google for
Yeah.
us was like something connected to our professional development. And I think before the pandemic, or just in different lives, work was one of the main sources of friends. Yeah, people were working, like as you mentioned, 9 years, the generations before us. How is how is it for you right now, because you also like started your own company, you are changing a lot, like in terms of professional directions, you have this career of trend forecaster. So how do you think, and how do you finding friendship at work? Are we still a work friends or not, like?
Oh, we
also
are
a thing.
so much putting labels on this. Like, I feel like, we are trying to define this situationship, or is it a boyfriend girlfriend thing, or are we
Yeah,
serious?
something like
Like,
this
this is
happening.
the
It
whole
is
podcast
happening.
about. Like, yeah, I feel like really in the corner.
This is a therapy. This is a therapy. It's not a podcast. It's a
But
therapy.
It's a trap.
like recently, my friend told me about a book, and that book distinguishes people into two groups, and it says like you are either from somewhere or you are from anywhere. And if you are from somewhere, those are typically people from your hometown who never left the hometown. They're living, working those steady jobs, and they're from somewhere. They would introduce themselves and they say, "Hi, I'm Anna. I'm from Wrocław." And then you have people like us, and we are the people from anywhere. Like, we have lived in different countries, we speak different languages, most of our friends are international. And it's just like if you planted us to Berlin, we would become part of Berlin in a week. And then you plant us to Korea, and we would become part of Korea like within a week. And it's kind of like we are used to that. And so I think, and that's a
I'm not sure Koreans would agree.
yeah.
But
Okay, details. but I think like for us, it's so easy to become friends in something that is supposedly a work environment, because we are so used to getting friends all the time, because you like work, move to Berlin, then you move to London, and you have to constantly make friends. You are very open-minded because you have traveled so much. You have this kind of like anywhere mindset. And I think that's why it's so easy for us even like to blend the work and non-work friendships. And I think it's like for us a concept of work-life balance doesn't exist. So I don't think that for us actually the concept of work friends exists anymore. Because like all of us, exactly as you said, like I'm part of this slash generation. I work for different clients. I work in different environments, and like I'm constantly changing. And I think you both are as well. So I think like the concept of work friends is for people who are from somewhere, and then we can ask the question. But like for us, like we have grown into that flexibility about friendships, but that also means that we tend to lose the friendships more often because we have moved to Berlin or London or anywhere, and then it's really hard to keep up.
Oh, it is.
I love the concept. It's frightening, but it answers a lot of situations, I would say.
Yeah.
So it fits well. So hopefully we'll meet each other soon somewhere.
Yeah, please.
Because that's what's happening. So we agreed on having a trip or anywhere. We will actually go anywhere together.
And maybe
We
on a
love
trip, we
that.
will
I love
qualify
that.
for the second episode together with our esteemed guests, because Pavlina, I'm inspired, but I have more questions after this, and it's a good effect of our chats. Look, right? So this was super, super lovely. Girls, I love you so much. Thank you for such a beautiful morning full of, oh my God, our wisdom.
It's not a morning anymore. It's not a morning era.
Shush, it's always a morning for me. It's just the midday.
It's
I
like
just woke
any
up.
excuse to have mimosa.
If it-
I think you would get her.
No, yeah.
It's mimosa
And-
time.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And it's very important. It's very important that midday is a morning for Ira. So whenever we're gonna meet next time and schedule a morning meeting, that means like let's meet in midday. Yeah.
Not earlier.
Lovely to see you, Pavlina and Ira. And thank you
Thanks
so
a lot.
much.
Shift happens.